The second leg in the Europa League round of 16 is officially here, and in today's video, I'm going to be giving you guys my predictions. To be honest, if we look back to the first leg fixtures, there were a lot of low scoring games. We saw 13 goals across all 8 games, which is a record low, as that's only about 1.5 goals in every single game. But I think this week we will see some very entertaining games, because the teams that lose this week will most likely be eliminated. And you may be wondering, why am I wearing a hat? To be honest, it's Sunday. I didn't want to do my hair. I was editing my Champions League video all day. Don't come for me in the comments, please. But without further ado, let's get right into this video. Starting off with the first match, which is taking place on Wednesday, we have Braga against Ferencvaros. I think this is going to be a very interesting matchup, because in the last matchday predictions, a lot of people in the comments were saying that Braga were easily going to beat Ferencvaros, but Ferencvaros ended up winning at home, which I did end up predicting, and they won 2-0, which is a very good result for them. I feel like since Robbie Keane has become the manager of Ferencvaros, they've been very good, and under his management, they've gotten 19 wins, 4 draws, and 7 losses, which is pretty good results. And currently, most of the time he does play in the 3 at the back formation, and I think that it suits them really well. In the last match, Braga did have much more possession, but I feel like Ferencvaros did very good on the defensive end to silence the likes of Zalazar and also Horta and some of their other key players. And with that being said, Braga didn't really have that many great opportunities, when Ferencvaros, on the other hand, they took their opportunities wisely, and that's how they won 2-0. Now Braga do have the home advantage, but in my opinion, I just don't think they have what it takes to overcome that 2-goal deficit. I don't think they will be able to beat Ferencvaros by multiple goals. So for that reason, I'm going to predict a 1-0 win for Braga, but Ferencvaros will be advancing. Moving on to the Thursday fixtures, the first game we got is FC Midtjylland against Nottingham Forest. Once again, in my first leg predictions, I predicted this game exactly correct. I predicted Midtjylland to win 1-0, and they did in fact win 1-0. And a lot of people were expecting Nottingham Forest to win that game, but with how poorly they've been in the Premier League, I personally couldn't see them winning. Of course, Nottingham Forest dominated possession. They had loads and loads of shots, and realistically, they probably could have scored multiple goals, but FC Midtjylland's goalkeeper Olafsson was absolutely incredible. He made so many saves. FC Midtjylland's back line, their defenders were very good as well, so I do think that they did deserve the win. And I feel like FC Midtjylland's manager Mike Tolberg made some very key substitutions in that first leg game, because if you look at them in the first half, they weren't doing good on the attack. So going into the second half, he substituted all 3 attackers. He put on the bench players, and one of the bench players did end up scoring, Cho, and he was the only player to score in that game. And with that being said, FC Midtjylland have the advantage. I'm going to predict a high scoring draw from this game. I'm going to predict a 2-2 draw, but on aggregate, FC Midtjylland will knock out Nottingham Forest. Moving on to the next match, we have Freiburg against Genk. And to be honest, in the first leg game, I did predict Genk to win, but I thought they would win by a lot more goals. If you look at Genk, they're a team that score loads and loads of goals. If you look at them in their last 5 or 10 matches, they scored 3-4 goals in almost every other match. They're a very high scoring team. But in that first leg game, Freiburg actually defended them very well to keep them to 1 goal. And now in this match, Freiburg do have the home advantage, but with that being said, they are 1-0 down on aggregate. And if you look at Freiburg, within their last 6 matches, they've conceded in every single match. They have not been able to keep a clean sheet for over a month. So with that being said, once again, I don't think they're going to be able to keep a clean sheet. Sadly for Genk, their midfielder in this game, Zakaria Elouadi, is going to be suspended, and he was the goal scorer for them in that first leg game. And in my opinion, he's been arguably one of Genk's best players this season. So missing him will be a little bit of a disadvantage. But with how poorly Freiburg have been in recent games, they haven't gotten a win in their last 4 matches. Once again, even though they have the home advantage, I don't think they're going to be able to win. So for that reason, I'm going to predict a 2-1 win for Genk. Moving on to the next match, we have Lyon against Celta Vigo. How Lyon almost lost that first game is crazy, because if you look at Celta Vigo, they were down a man for over 40 minutes of that game. Borja Iglesias got a red card in the 55th minute. Then being 1-0 up, Lyon really struggled to score the other goal, and they had all the possession, they had loads of shots, but it took them to the 87th minute to finally get a goal through Endrick. Now, I will say Endrick this season has been incredible since joining Lyon. Obviously at Real Madrid, he wasn't really getting the game time, but since he's been at Lyon, he's already gotten multiple goals and multiple assists. And in the Europa League, he's proven to be a very, very important player for them. But they need to finish their chances. They can't have 20 shots like they did in the first leg and only score 1 goal in the last minute. They need to make these chances count. And with that being said, having the home advantage, I do think they will be able to score their chances. So with that being said, I'm going to predict a 3-1 win for Lyon. Moving on to the next match, we have Aston Villa against Lille. Honestly, in the first leg, it was a very 50-50 match. Obviously, Aston Villa did finish with the 1-0 win, but I feel like in terms of possession, in terms of shots, and in terms of the overall game, I feel like it was a very 50-50 game. Both teams didn't really have the best chances. I feel like this game was heavily played in the middle of the park, but in this game, with it being played at Villa Park, I do think Villa should be able to win this game. I know Villa are on pretty bad form so far in 2026, but obviously being managed by Unai Emery, he is a Europa League manager. When it comes to the Europa League, whatever club he's with, he always ends up performing. And it seems like he always prioritizes the UEFA competitions over the league competitions, and it does seem like Aston Villa will be doing that, as in the Premier League they are struggling a little bit, but in the Europa League they've been very good so far. So for that reason, I can only see Villa winning. I feel like Lille haven't really been that consistent this season, and obviously they are still struggling with a few injuries. So for that reason, I'm going to predict a 2-0 win to Aston Villa, and they will advance to the quarterfinals. Moving on to the next match, we have Porto against Stuttgart. Honestly, I did not expect Porto to win the first leg game, because obviously Stuttgart have the home advantage, and in the Europa League they've been a high scoring team. They've scored 11 goals in their last 3 Europa League games, but in that game against Porto, they just didn't look good enough in the attack. If players like Undav and Demirovic struggle to score, then sadly for Stuttgart, they will most likely lose this game, because defensively this season they have been very, very poor. They've been conceding in majority of the games they play, and with Porto having the home advantage, I don't see Stuttgart being able to keep a clean sheet. But with that being said, Porto have also conceded in 3 out of their last 5 home matches, so I don't think either of these teams will fail to score in this game. I think this will be a very high scoring game, but for some reason I just feel like I have to back Stuttgart. This may bite me in the ass, because like I said, they're a very, very inconsistent team, but I gotta back Stuttgart. I think Stuttgart are gonna win 3-1, and they will be advancing to the quarterfinals. Moving on to the next match, we have Real Betis against Panathinaikos. I told y'all in the first leg game that Real Betis would struggle, and the reason for this is because in the league phase we saw them play in Greece against PAOK, and they struggled to score. And once again in this game they were playing in Greece, and Panathinaikos won 1-0. Now Real Betis, they had all the possession, they had a lot more shots, but once again they struggled to score. And yes, in this game Real Betis do have the home advantage, but that hasn't been seeming to help them in recent games. They're on horrible form. They haven't won a game in their last 5 matches, and the last time that they won a home fixture was over a month ago. They have been really struggling to keep clean sheets in recent matches, and if you look at Panathinaikos on the other hand, other than their most recent result, which did end in a draw, they've been winning majority of their games and scoring multiple goals as well. I feel like Panathinaikos will once again get a smash and grab, a quick 1-0 victory, and Panathinaikos will advance to the quarterfinals. And finally, the last match we got is Roma against Bologna. If we remember the first leg game, that was the definition of a 50-50 match. That game was completely even in terms of possession, in terms of shots. It was a very, very even game, and I did feel like that was to be expected. I felt like it was going to be a very low scoring game, but Roma did very good to come back into the game after going down and to score the last goal. 2 players that gotta mention who were very threatening to Roma in that first leg game was Jonathan Rowe and Federico Bernardeschi. Obviously they got the assist and the goal, and it was a beautiful worked goal by Jonathan Rowe and a great finish by Bernardeschi. And in my opinion, they were the 2 threatening players on Bologna. And I feel like for Bologna, for majority of the season, they have been very, very important players. The wingers for Bologna are very, very important. A lot of the attack goes through them. Obviously, they're the main creators for their team. And with that being said, they will be crucial in this second leg game against Roma. And in recent games, Roma have been starting to capitulate a little bit, because this is a very, very important time for them in the Serie A season. They are currently in that top 5 race. And if you look at them in their last 3 Serie A matches, they have not been able to get a single win. We recently saw them lose against Como. They lost against Genoa, and obviously they drew 3-3 against Juventus before that. And for a team who this season in the Serie A has been arguably the most solid team in terms of defense, they have been horrible recently. They conceded multiple goals against Como, multiple goals against Genoa, and obviously 3 goals against Juventus as well. So defensively, it's been a real struggle for Roma recently. I'm going to go with the upset. I'm going to predict Bologna to win this game 1-0 and Bologna will advance to the quarterfinals. And that's the end of this video. Those were my Europa League predictions for the second leg in the round of 16 fixtures. Obviously, don't make fun of my height in the comments, but if you enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and stay tuned for more videos.